All right, guys, we got to have a talk about Future State. What's up, guys? BJ Kicks here. I buy comics, I read them, and I review them, all for your viewing pleasure. Now, if you're new here, welcome. And if you're not, welcome back. On this channel, I talk about comic books. I unbox them, we do overviews, we do reviews, and everything in between. So if you're new here and you're interested in that type of content, hit the subscribe button, then hit that bell icon so that you're notified whenever I post new videos. Now, today, we are talking about Future State and what my thoughts are on it so far. As I record this, today is Wednesday, February 10th, and I've read most of Future State. I did not read the books that came out today. Let's see, including what came out today. I just picked up Dark Detective #3, Teen Titans #2, Robin Eternal #2, right? So there's a bunch of books that came out this week. Green Lantern #2. I did thumb through this one. I actually liked it a little bit. But yeah, so I haven't read this week's Future State titles just yet. But I read everything else, and you guys know I can get behind with my reading. So I took last Friday to just do a bunch of binge reading. And I pretty much read all of Future State. So here's what I've read so far. I've read the next Batman issues 1 through 3. I've read Dark Detective 1 and 2, Wonder Woman #1, Future State Nightwing #1, Robin Eternal #1, Superman Worlds of War, Batman Superman, Justice League #1, Green Lantern, and Teen Titans #1. And I wish I was more excited about this series. So I went live inside the K Squad Facebook group a couple days ago because I thought I was tripping, right? I was like, okay, maybe there's something I'm not getting about Future State, and maybe it's a lot better than I'm giving it credit for. So I went live to talk to a few people. I talked to Laura from Brown Coat Reviews, and I was watching all you guys in the comments as well. And it turns out we were all on the same page. Future State just isn't what I thought it was going to be. Now let's go back. So I talked about, or I got into Future State for one really big reason. And that's this book right here. This is the next Batman #1. Right now, a lot of people heard about the beginnings of Future State because of this book. It was rumored, like what, at least a year ago, that there's going to be a black Batman, and he's going to be written by John Ridley of 12 Years a Slave fame. And everybody's like, oh, okay, I'm kind of skeptical. But some people, like me, were pretty excited. I'm like, yo, a black Batman? He's a member of the Fox family. Everybody was speculating. Everybody was like, oh, Luke Fox is going to be Batman. It's going to be great. Turns out it's not Luke Fox. It's a different Fox. Tim Fox. Or Jace, if you're going for that type of thing. My bad, guys. I'm like organizing comics while I talk to you. This is a very different type of video. But yeah, this is Dark Detective #3. I like this cover. This is, who does this cover? I'm blanking. Oh, this is Lee Bermejo. You can tell because of the deep, you can tell. So anyway, I've got into Future State for the next Batman, and I was all in. And I read, this is Justice League #2, by the way. But yeah, I read the next Batman #1. Here's a second print of that cover, of that book, and it was really good. I really enjoyed it. And I guess we should talk about a little bit like what Future State is. So in case you're not reading Future State, DC Future State, out of the pages of Dark Knight's Death Metal. Now, spoiler alert, spoilers for Death Metal if you haven't read it yet. But Death Metal is this war for the multiverse, right? We got all this stuff set up by Scott Snyder over years and years. So we got Perpetua, who's like basically like the god of the world or whatever. The Justice League have been trying to stop her. She's too powerful. The Batman Who Laughs is like working for Perpetua, but then he wants to take over. Blah, blah, blah. The Batman Who Laughs is trying to destroy the multiverse and recreate it in his own image, meaning whatever the evilest, darkest, creepiest, scariest thing that he wants to dream up is what the world would have been. Well, too bad for him, Wonder Woman saved the day. But when she did, what she finds is that there are basically infinite multiverses. There's like worlds upon worlds upon worlds upon worlds and timelines and all sorts of stuff. And, we kind of get like this whole end scene where they're like kind of monitoring all the worlds because they're just now realizing they exist. And that is what sets the stage for Future State. So Future State is this world where it's like we don't necessarily know, it's not necessarily established which world is which stories are actually in the future, like in our future from the time period that we know, which are set on different Earths or different timelines or different alternate realities, whatever. That's kind of how it's set up in death metal. So basically, it's an excuse. It's an editorial excuse for whatever you want to happen in these books to happen. And that's where things get crazy. So I actually wrote down my thoughts so that I don't get sidetracked, even though I always get sidetracked. So let's talk about some of the high points, some of the things that I loved about Future State. The Next Batman #1. I really liked that book. I really liked the introduction that we got to Tim Fox as Batman. We basically just get him in action. We get the Bane Elitos, the Bane gang. We get Batman just kind of dropping in all mysterious like. I loved the artwork. I loved the colors. And then in issue 2, it kind of falls off. And all the things that I loved about it don't exist anymore. And I'm thumbing through these books while I'm talking to you about them. And man, I love this issue 1, right? And if you guys saw my issue on my review of The Next Batman #1, then you also saw that I talked about the backup stories. So each book in Future State is a freaking huge book. The Next Batman was a $7.99 cover price book. I think it's a 64-page book. And it's just full of stories. There's backups upon backups. And there's 3 stories in this book. Very cool stuff. So you got Arkham Knights and whatnot. A little bit earlier in, you got this cool story with the Outsiders and Katana. So you get cool stuff. Here's the thing. Because there is so much happening in Future State, like I said, there's a million books. I read off which ones I'm reading. There actually are books that I'm not reading. But all the books that I read have at least 2 stories in them. A lot of them have 3, right? And you're kind of led to believe that all these stories are connected. But then when you read the books, it's like there's no way they're connected, right? So anyway, let's start with the high points. Let's start with the pros, and then I'll go to the cons. So the high points. I love Next Batman #1. And then I will say the art has been mostly good from Future State. There's only a couple books that I'm like, I don't really like that artwork. And those were The Next Batman 2 and 3. But yeah, the art's been mostly good. And the individual stories are mostly fun. If you look at these books as like Elseworlds stories that aren't connected to each other, you probably enjoy them a lot more. Except the stories very much hint that they're supposed to be taking place together, although the timeline is muddy. There's no way to talk about the pros without talking about the cons. See what you did wrong, DC? Anyway, so let's talk about the cons. So I wrote down here, the stories are clearly in a shared universe, but they don't share much else. Does that make sense? They're clearly in the same world, but you can't tell what they have in common. They're just all over the place. It's as if DC editorial said, hey, everybody in Gotham, there's a magistrate. They don't like masked people. Do whatever you want to do. And everyone did whatever they wanted to do and didn't bother to check with each other to say, hey, is this character in your book? Maybe he shouldn't be in mine, right? So the timeline is muddy, right? So, okay, perfect example. This is Tim Fox, the next Batman. He's got a mask on, right? Obviously, he appears in the next Batman because he's supposed to. Now, in the next Batman, they talk about how Bruce Wayne is gone. We don't know what happened to him, but he's not here, right? Cool. But then we got Justice League. there's the next Batman right there in Justice League. In the Justice League #1, they say that the Tim Fox Batman was a better Batman than Bruce Wayne ever was. Okay, well, how's he in that book and this book at the same time? Okay, well, we can swing that because they're in different parts of the timeline. Okay, cool. But then, the next Batman's also in Dark Detective, so he's met Bruce Wayne. How's that happening? How is that happening? Right? Now, that's not all. The next Batman, Tim Fox, is also in Nightwing #1. And in Nightwing #1, right, Dick Grayson clearly thinks Bruce Wayne is dead. But then in the next Batman, or in Dark Detective, the next Batman meets Bruce Wayne. Which is it? What is going on? When are these books taking place? So that's my biggest gripe. If you're reading the books that are in the shared universes, it's kind of hard to tell when stuff takes place. Do they share a timeline? Do they not? Should I treat these as one-off stories, or are they trying to tell a larger story together? You get hints of both. It's friggin' counterintuitive. Doesn't make sense. So, timeline's muddy. My next issue with Future State so far, these prices are ridiculous. Now, of course, they got me anyway. As you can see, I got a bunch of cardstock variants. Cardstock variants are $1 more, but the next Batman had a cover price of $7.99. Superman Worlds of War had a cover price of $7.99, which means if I wanted the cool cover, the cover that everybody else is going to want, I had to pay $9 for that book. It's ridiculous. Now, going along with these prices, every book has like 2 or 3 stories in it. And I just have to be honest, no one cares about the backup stories. The only exception to that, in my case, is Green Lantern. I think the Green Lantern works as a series of backup stories or whatever because the Green Lantern is a core. And it's already established that the Green Lanterns are basically a group of space patrollers that already go to different sections. So the very loose directive of, oh, there's no power battery, there's no Green Lantern rings, it works because it's like, okay, well, what's happening in that corner of the world? And what's happening in that corner of the world? And it's sci-fi, so you can't really tell what time period it is anyway. So the Green Lantern, bravo. I actually like the Green Lantern #1. And I did thumb through Green Lantern #2, and I liked that too. That story with Hal Jordan looks really good. That artwork by Dexter Soy is really, really good. And I can't wait to actually read it. I'm probably going to review it on the channel. But yeah, there's too many backups, right? And so the problem that I'm having with Future State is I feel like I don't want to read the backups, but the books cost so much money that if I don't read the backups, I feel like I got duped. I feel like I didn't get my money's worth. And so I'm reading all these books, and the more I read, the less I care. Because the books aren't really telling a story together. And it's just like, dude, like, I don't know, like maybe you could have spaced out all these books over, a few more months and told some real serialized storytelling, right? But instead, we get 5 pages of story at a time, and then you move on to some other random part of the DC universe that I don't care about, and then you move on to another random part of the DC universe that I don't care about, and then you're like, oh, by the way, the series ends in 2 more issues. What is going on? That's what I want to know. So I hate that this wasn't the big glowing review that everyone would have wanted. I like talking about things that I like, but I just feel like this had so much potential, and I feel like it was sold to us as something completely different than what we ended up getting. And I want to know that I'm not that I'm not crazy. I mean, again, the pros are the pros. The pros are good, right? I love the artwork. I love these covers. I like these design variants. Like, there's so much that I like about Future State. I feel like it should have been a home run, and instead it's a base hit. And I'm like, I don't know that I care to watch another batter go up and try to hit the ball again. Because baseball's really boring to watch on TV. If you're not there in person, it doesn't matter. And that's the analogy for today. Future State. It's like a really long baseball game for a minor league team. with Major League uniforms. There we go. So that's how I feel about Future State so far. But I want to know, how do you guys feel about Future State? Is it as disappointing to you as it is to me? Are you enjoying the stories? Have you been able to block out in your mind and say, okay, you know what? These are just one-offs and they're interesting one-offs. For what like I said, I think the high points for me, I like Future State Justice League. I like Future State Green Lantern. I'm still following Dark Detective and I'm still following the next Batman. But it's like there's so much stuff going on that I don't need the Nightwing story. I don't need the Robin Eternal story. I don't need to know what's going on with the Gotham City Sirens or the Batgirls or Grifter. You know, I could have done without a lot of these stories. And if you had just taken these stories and separated them, I'm sure, a lot of these titles wouldn't have sold. Who's going to really buy a Grifter's book? But that's the thing. If no one would have bought it on its own, it probably doesn't need to be a thing as part of something else either. So there you go. There's all of my there's all of my editorial opinions. Hire me, somebody. But yeah, I want to know what you guys think about Future State. Let me know in the comments how it's been going for you, what you've enjoyed, what maybe I'm not seeing correctly, or if you agree, you can tell me that too. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. It really helps out in the algorithm. And if you want to talk comics with me and with my friends, other people from this channel, you should join the K Squad on Facebook. The K stands for Kicks and Kids Like You. So yeah, if you want to talk comics with people, there's no hate in the K Squad. There's no nonsense in the K Squad. There's no spam in the K Squad. It's just comics, hauls, photos, reviews, all that stuff. Join. In the description is the link to the Facebook group. I would love to see you guys inside. By the way, shout out to the Premiere Squad if you're watching this. And shout out to you guys. As I record this, we just hit 900 subscribers. That's a lot of people. I can't fit 900 people in my house. So shout out to you guys. Thank you for all of your support. And I got some pretty cool stuff coming out at 1,000 subscribers that I won't announce just yet. We'll just have to stay tuned. But until then, I hope you saw something you liked this video, even though I was trashing Future State like crazy. And if not, that's cool. You can always buy what you like. Make sure you read what you buy. And be nice to others, because kindness makes the world go round. Peace.